Welcome. Thank you for watching this. I'm here to talk to you all today about something that's not scary at all. Migrating documentation to a new tool. Before I begin, let me introduce myself a bit. I'm Brooke, and you can refer to me as she or her. I also go by Batman because we share the same last name. I'm holding here with a calculated plans, so technically I'm a cyborg too. I'm born and raised in Toronto, and as you could tell by my slides, I'm a pretty big fan of science fiction. And as someone with a degree in finance and a minor in English, I can confirm that documentation come from even the most unlikely of places. I'm a program leading communication at Facebook. We're a cloud accounting company where we help small business owners run their businesses without having to learn accounting. I manage internal documentation for our support team and external documentation for our customers through Help Center docs. So now that you know about me, I also want to do one more thing before I talk, and that is in my personal journey of reconciliation as a Canadian. I recognize that I'm presenting to you all from the land the British song of the Crown, the Initial Bag, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Inuit, and the Métis peoples. We are all guests on that land known as Turtle Island, which is the home to many intershading peoples today. Now, we all want simple and fast access to our docs, such a tool regardless of what tool your docs are on. But what if a tool was outdated, painful, and frustrating to use? What if a user were afraid of the tool and ASCII calling was subject matter experts instead? That was exactly the situation we found ourselves in with our customer support documentation. If our agent weren't using our documentation, they probably wouldn't deliver consistently great customer support. I also uncovered some custody data. Our agents were spending 13% of their time trying to find information in our wiki. But only 3% of the info in our wiki was relevant to support. And from qualitative data, our support agent could not easily find that 3% in our wiki. It was time to move to a new tool, and after evaluating many tools and making a business case, we had the green light. As someone responsible for maintaining our support team doc, I was faced with something that I had never dealt with before. Migrating our doc to a brand new tool. Where to begin? How have others done it? It was simultaneously exciting and terrifying. It was a real opportunity to start over, but with so many people relying on our docs, expectations were high. But as someone who went through the entire process from start to finish, I can tell you that it does not have to be scary. We delivered these 7 key steps, and I'll be going through each of them in detail using my migration story as an example. These steps are valuable in helping you prepare, anticipate, and overcome anything that arises. This will empower you to run a smooth migration, allowing the user to find and read all of the documentation. Like any journey, it begins with the first step. In this case, that is to create a project plan so you can track your work, manage your time, and keep your stakeholders updated. Now, it might sound really fun to start working on the project right away, but it's important to take a step back and put together a plan first. A project plan is perfect for migration. Will have all of the information and will hold you accountable. It's much easier to complete a migration with a plan that's written down instead of keeping it all in your head. You could copy your template from project managers at your company and modify it, or you can make your own. Either way, you should make sure your project plan includes the following. First off, a project description to explain why you're implementing the tool and the goal of a new tool to help give readers context. Next is your business case that should cover details on why the project is happening. You can put in key data you've uncovered or link to your business proposal if you made one. Then, specify who is responsible for each part of the project. These are your stakeholders. Then people know who to reach out to if they have questions. Also, consider your priorities like the table here. Outline where you're flexible and need flexible when it comes to the scope, the schedule, and the budget resources or people. This is how you will prioritize tasks as they come up. You can make it as specific or as flexible as your needs require. Then, add or link to a calendar again showing or something that visually depicts the timeline of a migration. It's okay if you haven't figured out how long each part of a migration will take. You can start with rough estimates for now. Next, list all of your to-do items, every single one of them. You can bucket them into sections or categories to make them less overwhelming. Checkboxes are optional but very satisfying to check off. Then, they want to outline what kind of communication you'll be sending out. Is it a meeting, an email, a Slack message, or a mix of all? Who are you communicating with? How often? This sets stakeholder expectation on updates from you. And finally, specify any potential internal or external risks that could delay or derail the migration. Think about the impact and outline what actions you need to take should those risks become reality. Classify each risk with a status, mitigated, caution, or critical, so you know which one to keep a close eye on. This is how you anticipate obstacles before they occur, and how to handle them should they arise. To summarize, a good project plan has everything documented for others to see and for you to reference. It should always be updated as you check off an item on the to-do list or as you encounter new obstacles. It should always be the first tab you open at the beginning of the day and the last tab you close at the end. After all, Princess Leia didn't just steal the Death Star plan, did she? She planned in first. The second step in the auditing your doc to ensure that all of the migrated content is up to date and useful. The brilliant thing about a new tool is that you have an opportunity to start fresh. Evaluate all of the content first and save yourself time and effort by only moving content that's still useful. Especially if you've inherited a hot mess or if you have no idea what kind of content lurks in the darker corner of a documentation. The auditing process will also ensure that a new tool is set up for success with immediately useful docs. When it comes to auditing your content, the key requirements are: if it's the first time you're organizing your doc, make sure you have everything in one place for you to audit first. If you've already centralized your knowledge, double check you have everything. Once you've gathered all of the info into one place, catalog it into an index or a table of contents. That will give you a high-level view of what docs you have, and that catalog will be important for other steps. Once you have a catalog, evaluate each entry individually and determine what to keep, what to shrink, and what to omit. You can use your own labeling system, or you can use one of these others. Third rot, which is redundant, outdated, trivial. There's also ouch, which is outdated, unneeded, current, have to write. Or the classic, yes, maybe, no, right. Don't forget to add missing content that may have never been documented to your catalog with the label team. Just summarize, audit everything you have before you move in to save yourself time and headaches. Use the opportunity to clean up and get your dog into the best shape of their lives. And auditing will also help you from getting stuck in the nitty-gritty. It keeps you power in your hand like the Millennium Falcon on the Castle Run. The first step is to build the foundation by establishing the information architecture and the tagging structure. Once you have the content outlined, you could start thinking about how it should be organized in your new tool. The framework is important to establish early on before you migrate. I'll make it easier to manipulate before you add in the actual content. Remember the catalog I mentioned in the previous step? That's what I'm going to use to determine the information architecture. Information architecture, also known as IA, is a great tool. IA is all about the organization, structure, and labeling of content in an effective and sustainable way. In other words, the hierarchy of the content. From the previous step, take a catalog and look at it from an IA perspective. Does it make sense? And it's easy to find content based on the category the section you've organized it into. Otherwise, reorganize it. Create or remove parts of the structure as you see fit. Next, use a code rating exercise with the user to test your IA. This is a common tool for user experience testing. First, you're going to write each entry from your catalog onto sticky notes. Then, ask your user to organize the sticky note into a hierarchy that is intuitive and meaningful to them. Ideally, you would do this with users of various levels of experience. See if a user writes the info into a hierarchy similar to the one you created or not. Then, look at all the results together and come up with an IA that reflects everyone's rating as much as possible. The more the IA makes sense to your user, the easier it will be for them to find the docs in a new tool. Then, with a new IA, you can start thinking about tags and labels. Both tools will allow you to tag or label your content. This is a great shortcut for users to search with. From there, you can set up best practices for how to tag content, what tags to use, and when to create new tags in the future. Your IA is the foundation of the structure. To summarize, planning out the information architecture from the beginning means it will be easy to add or modify the structure in the future. This will also make the rest of the migration easier, since you can work through the information architecture you've established piece by piece. After all, fundamental understanding of the Force is essential to becoming a Jedi. The fourth step is to prioritize blocks by breaking up the work into smaller pieces. When it comes to figuring out the timeline of a migration, it's best to go into them with no expectation. It's easier to estimate how long it takes to migrate by dividing up the work into smaller blocks and estimating your time from a block. The smaller your blocks are, the easier it will be to reprioritize when surprises come up. Now, you can use your IA to create those filters, category, section, boring, patient, whatever the new tool you're using to organize your content. You gain confidence while working on a blank slate, and you get more familiar with the new tool. It will also give you an idea of how much time it takes to create content in the new tool, so you can make accurate estimates. Then next, divide up your IA into smaller pieces, prioritize them into an order that makes sense to you. Work one piece at a time, moving from simple to complex. If this is the first time you organize your content, you might need to prioritize your most important content first. Or, if you're like me, moving from an old tool, start with something simple and easy. It gives you room to make mistakes, play around with formatting before you tackle the complex content later. When it comes to prioritizing, time management plays a huge role too. Make sure you and your manager are on the same page about your time and expectation. If you have to balance migration with other duties, scheduling migration work will have less chances of being interrupted. For example, I'm a morning person, and the earliest our support team starts at 8 a.m. I knew I would have a lot more quiet time if I migrated content in the morning with less people to interrupt me. I will have my afternoon open for meetings, surprising, and other things to keep my morning free for migration. To summarize, take control of a migration process by breaking it up into blocks and by intentionally ordering those blocks. The smaller the blocks are, the easier it is to manage your time and avoid costly interruption. And remember, it's a journey. The Death Star runs in burns in a day. The fifth step is to make change easy by setting up a launching training plan for your user after the migration. Change can be scary for some people, especially if you're springing on them suddenly out of nowhere. Even though you migrated content, you also need to think about how to get a user on board. Keep a user in mind from the very beginning and introduce change to them gradually. The user will determine the success of the tool, so early communication and awareness is key to a successful launch. One way to do this is with beta testing, which is where you let a few of your users test something before you release it to everyone else. And list a few people and make sure you mix it up. You want some to be new hire, veteran, some to be individual contributor and management. Get as much feedback as you can in the early station of a migration so you can correct as soon as possible. Next, you want to let your users know change is coming. Send out teacher emails. Prepare a quick slide deck of the tool's best feature and present it at the next team meeting. Remind the user several times over your project schedule. Get them excited. Then, think about how you're going to train all of your users. Every new tool requires training. How will the training be delivered? Who is going to facilitate the training? What do you want the user to learn? What functionality do you need to cover, like searching and navigation, for example? This will give you the framework to build a lesson plan from. To summarize, your tool will only be successful if your users buy in. If your users are on board from the very beginning, it will be easier for them to adapt and adopt. You don't want the users to get angry, like a rookie who has lost a game with base shot, do you? The sixth step to embrace flexibility, migrate your dogs with an open mind. When you migrate your content, it could be a roller coaster of excitement and drudgery. The key is that you migrate your content intentionally and at your own pace. Use your productivity to keep your motivation high. Follow your project plan, stay on track with your blog, and be ready for anything while you move your content. As you migrate content, use your to-do list and check things off as you complete them. Feel free to add new checkboxes for random things that come up. You can also highlight or strike out an item from your catalog as you move them over to the new tool to keep track. And with migration, flexibility really is key. Even though you try to plan for everything, there's gonna be surprising. Keep a positive attitude and be ready for anything. Don't be afraid to expand parts of your project plan while you migrate your content. Again, writing it all down makes it less overwhelming versus keeping it all in your brain. Lastly, with a big project like this, don't forget to give yourself a break every now and then. When you clear out a block, take a moment to celebrate. Watch your to-do list shrink, move a lot of progress. Share a sneak peek, get a user excited for new things. To summarize, migration will seem less intimidating when you have the mindset of being flexible and being prepared. All the previous steps you completed will give you the tools to handle anything during your astronomical migration. As Qui-Gon Jinn would say, your focus determines your reality. The last step is to end migration with closure by reflecting on the journey and following up with updates. At this point, you completed the migration, you delivered heritage training, and the users are finally using the tool. It's an exciting time. If you have the means, celebrate with a launch party and making the new tool with style. And although you might be tempted to close the project plan, walk away and call it a day, there's a bit more work to be done with reflection and post-migration tasks. Lastly, you want to give a user the closure they deserve with some final communication as well. First off, do the reflection with a retrospective or a retrovision. In Agile methodology, a retro is held at the end of the sprint to discuss what worked and what did not. Reflect on skills to you like time management and collaboration, analyze processing so that you can apply those lessons in the future. There are a lot of retroactivity out there, but my preferred one is a sample. This variation I use it where the sample represents things, people, and processing that help accelerate the migration project. The anchor represents what's slowing it down. The sun represents what made us happy during the project. And the iceberg represents what could negatively impact the new tool we're putting at risk. Next, think about how to future-proof your new tool so that it's always useful and relevant to your user. How will users going to pass feedback for missing or outdated content to you? How can users get support when they are having trouble using the new tool? Once you have it set up, make sure the users know that this feedback cycle exists and how they can contribute. This ensures your docs stay relevant and continue to scale with your product or your team. Lastly, follow up with stakeholders. They will appreciate hearing back from you on how the migration went, especially if a lot of money was involved. You can share a high-level summary of your ritual, how the feedback cycle will work, and what data you'll be tracking to determine the success of the tool. To summarize, give a migration the end-to-end introduction because you spent a lot of time planning it and executing on it. Then reflection will bring a deeper understanding of your skills. And although you're completing a migration, you might have a few things left to do. Your migration project is just the latest chapter of a documentation story. This new tool is the beginning of a new saga. So, to recap, the 7 steps you need to make a migration go smoothly are create a project plan, auditing doc, build the foundation, prioritizing blocks, make change easy, embrace flexibility, and finally, end with reflection. These steps will help you move your docs efficiently with minimal disruption to your user. After all, a successful migration means your users are better educated and more empowered to find information in a new tool. Your stakeholders will be happy too. And most importantly, people are finally reading your beautiful, well-written documentation, and that's the best. If you have any questions or you should want to keep in touch, you can find me on LinkedIn, Medium, where I document my documentation practice, and of course, the Write the Docs Slack community. Thank you so much for listening. Live long and prosper.